Hit record. There we go.
Okay, then just share the recording with me after somehow.
All right, sounds good. Okay. Starting over. Welcome, ladies, to the Empowered Woman School with Marta Spark and me, Erin Baer. You're probably wondering, who am I and why am I here? So I am Erin Baer, and I'm an author, speaker, and empowerment coach. My company is called Beaten to Badass, and I have joined forces with the beautiful Marta Spark. And I was really tired of seeing women being silenced for wanting to be strong, courageous, and proud of who they are while moving forward from feeling beaten down in life. So I decided that I needed to be the positive voice to show women that their circumstances don't define them and they can be their own heroes. So that's when I decided to write my book, From Beaten to Badass. While I was writing my book, I started the organization, like I said, called Beaten to Badass. And I've decided to dedicate myself to empowering those who've been beaten down by life to become the badass they were always meant to be, whether it be by domestic violence, sexual assault, bullying, abandonment, infertility, or however life beats you down. Beaten to Badass, me, where I am there to start the conversation, raise awareness, give back, and implement change. So that's just a little bit about me. So let's get started. Why are we doing a class called The Seeds in Our Lives, Developing Awareness of Our Past? Because Marta Spark asked me to. She's amazing. So that's what we're going to talk about today, are the seeds. We just went live a little bit in the group, and we're going to dive deeper today about what the seeds are in our lives and how we can really become aware of them. So what are the seeds? The seeds in our lives are planted when we hear something, whether it is from parents or teachers or friends, even bullies, bosses, or coworkers. Seeds are the way we are treated or how we are defined by those people. And I'm sure many of you have definitely heard something about yourself and you're like, is it true? And we start to really believe that it might be true. And so I want to tell you a little story because I love stories, and I want to tell you the story about the Can Man. I got to move the video out of the way because it keeps popping in my thing. So a story, the Can Man, and what seed did this plant? So I was a little girl about 10 years old, and my mom always told me growing up that you should always make your gifts because those come from the heart and they really do have a lot of value and a lot of meaning, and it shows a lot of love and care, and you should always make your gifts. So I loved this little flower that I had. I called it the dancing flower. And if you're old enough where you grew up in the 80s or 90s, you would know it's a little flower that dances around. It has a little guitar and it's got sunglasses. So it was one of my favorite things. I absolutely loved it. And my mom, she loved Coca-Cola, believe it or not. And so she always used it as a treat. And so I took a Coca-Cola can and I cleaned it, made sure it was pristine and beautiful and perfect condition. And I took this flower and I tore it to pieces and I made what's called the Can Man. And it was for her Christmas present. And so I wrapped it up in a really nice package with a pretty little bow. And I waited eagerly on Christmas morning to give it to her. As all the gifts were being opened, I just waited and waited. And I handed my mom this gift. And she opened it carefully, untied the bow, and she took out this Can Man. And she looked at it, and she looked at me, and she said it was the worst gift she'd ever received. I was devastated. I had put so much heart and so much thought into this Can Man that I was just absolutely, my heart was shattered. And she took that Can Man, and she proceeded into the kitchen, and she threw it in the trash in front of me. She said it was the worst gift she'd ever received, and I was just crushed. And as a little girl, 10 years old, you look up to your parents, you look up to your mom, right? Because she's your mom. She brought you into this world, and you want her approval. And so when she threw that Can Man into the trash, it told me that I wasn't good enough. So she had planted that seed saying that I wasn't good enough, that nothing I ever made was good enough, and anything I ever did was never going to be good enough for her and her approval. And it absolutely that seed started to sprout, and it grew into a huge tree saying that I'm not good enough. So my question to you is, what seeds were given to you? They can be good, they can be bad, and they can be very indifferent. And I really want you to think about the seeds in your life that you took and what you did with those. Were they good? Were they bad? Were they indifferent seeds? And really, really dive in, because you know who you are as a person. You know what makes up who you are and your essence and the values that you carry and the beliefs that you hold. And so I really want you to think about who gave you those seeds and were they good? And what seeds did you give yourself? So what do we do with the seeds? What do we do with them? It's up to us whether we plant them by believing and nurturing those seeds, or we throw them aside. So I took that little seed that my mom gave me the day that she threw the can man in the trash, and I said, okay, I'm not good enough. And I started to believe that I wasn't good enough, and it didn't matter what I did and how I acted. I mean, I was a good person, but I just let it sprout, and I let it become this enormous tree. And so it really led me down a path of, I don't want to say self-destruction, but a path of like not believing I was going to ever be worthy of love or ever be worthy of having friends, because I was being bullied and teased anyway. So that must have been the way I should have lived my life anyway, because my mom didn't like me. So nobody should like me. And so it's something that was really strongly rooted into who I thought I was. And it was devastating. And so I want to really stress to all of you that we have the power to decide what we do with these seeds. We have the power to take that seed and throw it aside. And if there's any beliefs that you have about yourself that are limiting, I want you to dig deep and I want you to find out who gave you that seed. Just because somebody you love and somebody you care about gave you that seed does not mean that that seed carries any value. It doesn't mean you have to nurture it. It doesn't mean you have to let it grow and become this enormous tree that's within your forest of many wonderful things about you. Because if that tree is toxic, you need to chop it down. And I think as women, we have a lot of limiting beliefs, and a lot of it comes from those things that people give us, whether we're good enough, strong enough, smart enough, skinny enough, pretty enough. There should never be something enough. We are enough the way we are, and you need to understand that you have the power to change that. So do we have any questions so far, Brandy, Gina, or Marta? I would like to know if there's any seeds that you have, that you've planted, that have been given to you by anybody in your life that you thought you had to hold on to, and you're now realizing that you don't.
Well, I definitely have the seed of my mom telling me that, well, I grew up, she's told this story so many times, and I know it was meant to be positive, but now I realize that it actually took a very negative toll on me because I'm the youngest. So I have an older sister. She's 4 years older than me. And she has told me several times that she did not want to have any more kids, that I was just too hard, any more kids. And when she found out she was pregnant, I don't know when that was, I guess I should ask, God told her that I was going to be a blessing and everything was going to change. And it did. Financially, her relationship with my dad, everything changed. Everything was great. But now in hindsight, I see that having heard those words over and over and over and over again created in me the need to prove myself. Well, I know that I am good, but you still didn't want me, you know? You were still figuring things out with your other daughter, and you didn't want the same thing again to add to the struggle, you know? And so it's almost like I had that burden within me to make sure, even though God had said that I was going to be a blessing, I still needed to make sure that I was that blessing and to stand out, even though I naturally stood out. You know what I mean? So I definitely identified that. And it was actually recently that I realized that because of all the inner work.
So what kind of things did you do to make sure that you were a blessing to your mother, that you weren't a nuisance or a problem or something she had to deal with because it was something she didn't necessarily want in the beginning?
So I think a lot of it was, I have always been naturally loud as a person. But I think a lot of it was just to call attention. Like I was already like that. And then to add to that seed that was planted, it became even more exacerbated so that I needed to stand out more than my sister. And it was interesting that growing up, my parents would always make sure that my sister was okay, because they knew that I was standing out the entire time. So it was almost like to compensate for that, they gave her more attention just to make sure she was okay. But that didn't help me because it meant I had to be even louder and louder and louder and louder. So what I did was, from a young kid, I would just always be singing, performing for them, and really doing my best in school. They never, ever demanded that I do well in school. It was all me. I needed to do well and seek that approval from my teachers, because that was something that I didn't get in my house, because they didn't really care. I was doing great. She didn't have to ask me how my grades were, if I'd had any, struggles, or if I had done my homework, because I was on top of it. But I wasn't praised for that either. It was just like, yeah, you're doing great. Good for you. But I just kept on searching for new accomplishments to see if they would finally notice, or she would finally notice. Because even my friends' parents, they would say, you're amazing. And even my friends would say, my mom wished you were her daughter. And I was like, well, why doesn't my mom wish I was her daughter? So, yeah.
Did you, because of that one seed, did you have little seedlings that branched off of that one seed that you thought about yourself and belief about yourself because of that one?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I think that after having kids, that was my biggest struggle, is that I was going to have to share the stage with my kids. And the fact that I had 3 kids at the same time, it was like, where do I even go? How can I even compete with 3 kids at the same time? And that has been my struggle ever since finding out that it was 3, not even postpartum, but while I was pregnant. I was already struggling with the idea of, I'm not going to be the center of attention anymore, because there will be 3 of them,
So are you more consciously aware of the seeds that you're giving to your children? Because you do have one child that has special needs, and then you have 2 that, that don't. So how do you balance that because of the way you grew up and now the way that...
That's interesting, because that is definitely something hard for us to not naturally have more of a concern for the one that has a condition, and that will be something interesting to see once he grows up, to talk to him about it and see how he feels, especially if he grows out of it, which is what we're hoping. If he feels like he's been treated differently or not, because he's actually the most independent out of all of them. And I don't know if it's because of his condition, it made him that much more of a fighter, I believe so. But he has a very strong personality. I for sure, I feel like with everything that I've gone through with my parents and with their need to make sure we're both treated equally all the time, that actually harmed us in a way, because sometimes you can be treated equally. You can't ever anyways, because we're different. But this need for them to make sure that we're both loved the same, except because I'm louder, they end up giving my sister more attention to overcompensate, which means they're not being equal, I definitely carry that on with my kids, into trying to make sure that I am not giving one more attention. Like that's the whole struggle with triplets, is that I simply cannot give them individualized attention. And that's the reason why I even started the work that I do, because I realized I can't be everything for everybody. And it starts with my kids, because they're the same age, So I guess what I have been doing is I have been pouring into myself to make sure there's more of me left to give to them.
Right. And that's important, and I'm, like I said, I'm not a mother, but I'm a twin. So I can see it from the child's perspective of, being a twin. And it's really actually quite frustrating when the mother or the teachers or whoever it may be, the role, the adult in the situation tries to give equal attention, because you actually do a detriment to them, because we're smart enough to know that it's not equal. There are moments where you have to favor one or the other. And so for me, it was my dad favored me over my twin, and my mother favored her over me. But we had 2 different households. We had my dad out in California, and then my mom and her new husband in Missouri. And so for me, it was my twin, me, and my little sister. And when the little sister came along, I was then excluded even more. So it just really enhanced the nurturing of that seed saying I'm not good enough. So as a twin, you know, as a multiple birth person, I guess you could say, we know we're smart enough to figure out like who you're favoring and who you're not. But I really do believe that the underdog, like I was the underdog of the two of us, we become stronger because we have to figure out how to fight for ourselves. We have to figure out how to fight through the dirt and really root ourselves in everything. And it's hard. It's hard because you're given a toxic seed, and then you're trying to figure it out on your own, and you're not sure how those are supposed to be in alignment, you know, and which ones are going to tangle which roots. So I became strong. I became independent. I decided to step back in the background, but that also allowed the seed of I'm not good enough to really flourish, because it was a constant belief cycle that I kept pouring onto myself. I kept nurturing that and thinking, oh, okay, well, since the person that's supposed to nurture me gave me that, that's the most important thing I need to believe. And so for you as a mother, I think you just have to do your best, and you have to take care of you and put you first before you put kids. Because if you don't put you first, then they're going to think that they're supposed to be first. And you're not going to be able to teach them by giving them the seed that, no, you need to put yourself first always. You know, obviously, if you're religious, I'm like God, me, and then my husband, and then my cats. Like that's the order. And I think people need to understand that when you grow older and you start to see the belief systems that we have intertwined in our mind, we have to start to learn how to pick those apart and say, okay, well, this is in alignment with me. I know that I'm enough, and this seed over here saying I'm not enough is not okay. I need to chop it down. And it takes a lot of work. And you and I've talked a lot about, you know, chopping that down. It takes a lot of self-reflection, a lot of self-love, a lot of, you know, personal development. And Brandy, I'd love to hear from you on possibly any self-limiting belief that you're struggling with that came from somebody else that you're working on trying to, you know, dispose of.
Yeah, I kind of have somewhat similar background, it sounds like, with you guys, with my mom. So she would always tell, like, me and my sister, she was like, oh, it's a good thing Brandy has brains or she'd never get a husband. And it's a good thing Brittany has her looks because she sure doesn't have brains. And it was like a joke, you know, that I was this smart, ugly one. And she was always telling me, like, when I was like 10, like, you're getting fat. I'm like, thank.
Oh, I lost her, but can you still hear her? I think we lost you.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Sorry, where did you lose me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear.
Where did you guys lose me at?
That you were told that you were the fat, pretty one, or the fat, smart one. Or
yeah. So, and then my mom would always tell me to like lose weight when I was like 10 years old, that I was getting fat. And so
I can't hear her. She keeps cutting out right at the perfect part where I'm trying to like really dig in.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I'll try to mute myself. And
sorry, I should have pulled up on my phone. It doesn't do this on my phone. Yeah, I've always struggled with body image issues ever since I was young, just because of that. Like, I've always felt like I wasn't pretty enough or good enough or anything like that.
yeah, and I think, you know, depending on, you know, what seeds our mothers were given as a child and didn't know about self-love and personal development and empowerment, you know, because that wasn't talked about. It was like, you're supposed to be quiet, sit down, and look pretty, right? Women aren't supposed to talk. And I think our mothers were given a pretty rotten deal because they were given so many limited beliefs growing up that we're trying to break that cycle. We're trying to figure it out on our own because our mothers couldn't really teach us the way they were supposed to or the way that they hoped that they were treated. And it runs deep. It's very rooted in our family dynamics. And I think it is for a lot of women.
With my mom, she came from like a really awesome family, but she didn't know that there's bad guys out there. She just thought you get married, you're happy, everything's fine. And so she married my dad, who was extremely abusive and who talked to her that way. And so I think that was her way of trying to protect me. Like, if you're skinny and pretty, you won't get treated the way I'm getting treated. And so I think it was her way of trying to make sure nobody did the things to her or to me that they did to her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I do. It's hard. It's hard. And I think Gina wanted to jump in and have a few things to add to Gina.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to my screen, but I'm here in voice, I think. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Yeah, I'm resonating with everything, and actually I had to put my son and his school aside, and I think, and I also, you know, I'm just got a lot going on right now, but I did put makeup on, and I put myself first, and I actually screamed at my son, and I feel terrible, but he was just like, Mom, you promised that you would help me with my schoolwork. And I was like, yes, I did. But I haven't eaten breakfast. I haven't taken a shower. I haven't taken care of me. And then I got a phone call from a therapist that's working with my other son. And what I'm getting, and this is a very right now in the moment thing, is like, this week, everything's exploding for moms. We are just hitting the, oh my God, I can't do this. And we have this perfectionistic thing that's programmed into us, like, but I have to be able to do it all. I have to be able to make sure my kids are doing school and cooking dinner and keeping the house clean. And I'm like, maybe I ought to just stop working, like, because I don't seem to be very productive right now. And what's the point? And and the seed, I'm going to, I'm kind of commenting on both people's comments, and then Marta was talking about the early seeds that were planted, and I was also the youngest of 10 children, and the seed that got planted was your opinion means nothing. Like, you're the youngest, you're the last on the totem pole, so step aside and wait. And that's really hard. I realize where I've shuttered off my voice a lot of times because, I don't want to be a conflict. I don't want to ruffle anybody's feathers. I don't want to disagree, rather than disagree with this person, I'll just keep myself shut up. And that's very disempowering. And I found it through my divorce. So, it's easier to just keep my mouth shut than speak my mind. And now I find myself standing up for myself, and people are like, whoa, you're a tyrant. And this is more with my kids. And it's hard when you're used to being perceived as the person who's yes, I'll do that, I'll take care of it, and then all of a sudden you're like, no, I can't, and I don't have it in me anymore. And I think a lot of moms are programmed that way, and we're, based on the conversation I had with this therapist, I mean, even the therapists are run into the ground right now, trying to take care of other people coming from a depleted source. So it's okay to pause, it's okay to be still, and it's okay to do less. I see so many women like spinning their wheels trying to do more and I've been doing the same thing, but it's highly unproductive in the current climate that we're in.
I agree. I definitely agree. Marta and I have had several conversations about how we think we need to keep, I'm married and I have 4 cats, but Marta has three kids and a husband all at home. And we've talked multiple times where we're like, I got to do this. I got to do this. I got to do this. And then we're just like, I'm done. I can't do anymore. I just need to take a moment for myself. And then we feel guilty because we're not delivering, or we're, still have that mindset that we need to prove ourselves, or we need to keep going, to show that we can keep it all together. And in reality, we really need to be vulnerable and show ourselves that, like, you know what, I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I need to take a break, because that also allows other people the permission, even though we don't need permission, the permission to say, okay, it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to struggle with, you know, those roots that are so deeply rooted in us that other people have given us the seeds of, you know. We're struggling right now. I mean, we're in a very unusual situation with the pandemic, and we're all stuck at home, and we're not able to fill up our cup like we used to with other empowering women to say, hey, it's okay, I got you. Like, if you need to rest, I've got you. And you are, you know, you are strong, you are independent, you are enough, you are a badass. And just because these circumstances seem to be overwhelming and overbearing at this moment, normally we can just, you know, go have lunch with a friend and we can let it all out and be okay. But right now I think all of us women and mothers especially are having to put a front on and be strong. I mean, you guys are working, you're homeschooling, you're managing the household, you're managing the bills, you're managing your businesses. That's a lot. We're women with a million hats, and we need to start planting the seeds of we are enough. When we need to keep planting that we are enough, period. There's no good about it. Nobody's good enough. Everybody's enough. And we have to lean on each other, and we have to grab a hold and say, hey, I'll help hold you up. If you need a break, I'll help hold you up, and really leaning on each other instead of tearing each other down. Because I think by us tearing each other down, we're stepping on those nurturing seeds that we've been trying to let grow, right? You know, I have a succulent plant that I was given at this event back in December, and I've been nurturing it and nurturing it and nurturing it. Well, I over nurtured it. And some of the seeds some of the leaves started to wilt and rot. And I was like, oh no, you know, and it's very symbolic for me because I've had 2 pregnancies in the last year and I lost both of them. And so that succulent represents a lot for me right now. Like, am I enough? Can I take care of something that's my own? And am I going to be judged if I fail? So I think what we need to do is really hold on to the succulents or the trees or the plants or whatever it may be that's a metaphor for you, and say, okay, I've got this. And if I don't feel like I got it, maybe I need to go lean on somebody that is in my corner and get their strength while I take a break. So I commend all of you. You guys are doing amazing jobs, and you really need to pay attention to the belief systems that's running in your mind, especially at this time. And it brings me to, what seeds made you feel beaten down. We just talked about that. It can come from the traumas we've survived, such as illness or grief or infertility, anything that knocks us down, that's beaten us down in life. Those we don't have to hold on to. We can let them go. It's a lot harder to let them go because it just defies what we've been told our whole life. But I want you to know that you don't have to feel guilt. You don't have to feel shame. You can let it go. And if you need help, reach out to people that you trust and you feel connected to. Gina, I know that you're beating yourself up for what's going on in your life right now, but you can't do that, and I beat myself up sometimes for the things that I've gone through in my past. And I know Marta's beat herself up, and we've had conversations about, somebody in her life that thinks that she's not doing enough as a mother because she decides to sing on YouTube. That's a gift that Marta has. We have to hold on to those gifts. And when people turn a mirror on us, it's because they don't want to look in the mirror themselves. And, we have to say, you know what, that's on you. Please don't limit me because you want to limit yourself. And it's hard to stand up and say that, right? It's hard to say, look, you're not good for me. You're toxic. Like you can either draw the line in the sand and not let them cross it and not tell them what you have to do, or have them tell you what to do and say, hey, you know what? You're not good for me right now. I need a break. But it's hard for us to say that because we've been told to sit down and shut up. So I want to really stress that you guys have the permission. You don't need it from me, but please, draw the line in the sand and know that you don't have to be guilty or shameful of what you're struggling with. We all have our struggles. We all have the seeds that have beaten us down, but you can be a badass. We can still get up. Circumstances don't have to define us. we get to make that choice to live the life that we want to live, regardless of what's happened in the past and regardless of what's happening now. You know, we might be reopening up, right? I'm staying home. I'm not going to go rush out. It scares me to death. So I had this conversation with a therapist of mine yesterday. I was like, I have to know what's good for me right now, and I'm going to get a lot of judgment for it. But I'm going to stay home. I'm going to keep my gym closed for another 2 weeks after we reopen. And it's a seed that I have to plant and I have to nurture. And I have to know that I'm making the right decision for me, regardless of anybody else's judgment and opinion. And that's the biggest thing, is nobody's opinion about you is any of your business. Only the opinion of yourself. That's it. That's the opinion you need to value most. And so I want you guys to really hold on to the fact that your circumstances don't define you at all. You're a badass and you're enough. So you just have to make a choice. No matter how hard you've been beaten down, you can still be a badass because it's already in you. You're meant to thrive in this world. You're meant to do the things that God has gifted you to do, whether it's singing on YouTube and empowering women to self-love, whether it's knowing that you're smart and you're beautiful, Brandy, whether you had to say goodbye to your son, Gina, for a moment to protect you and the rest of your family, whatever it may be, it's okay. And you're a badass and you are doing the right thing by taking care of you and your loved ones. You know, Jamie, you know, I don't know too much about her, but I do know that she's gone through a lot of things that are similar to me, and she needs to know that she's okay and those don't define her. You know, there's a lot that we have dealt with in our lives, and there's a lot that we are balancing. You know, how many, I don't even know, balls can we really hold up into the air? One's bound to fall, and they're like glass, right? Like they're bound to fall and they're bound to shatter. But you have to know which balls to let go of and to let shatter. And it's going to be okay. Nobody's going to get hurt because you matter and you know what you're in alignment with. So I want you to really understand that your circumstances don't define you. You are all a badass. You all are enough. So I'll open the floor. Thanks. I'll open the floor. That's my little lesson. And let me know, you know, if you have any questions or thoughts or comments or you want to share.
I just want to say thank you, Erin, and I have to hop off, and but thanks for showing up, ladies.
Thank you for showing up.
Yeah.
Always show up for yourself first. Oh, and I have this little saying, you know, always bet on yourself first. Always. Because without you, nothing else happened.
That's right.
Yeah.
I love that.
Right. Take care, everybody.
Thank you too.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry I had a bad connection there. I should have logged in on my phone. I didn't think I was going to be talking. So sorry.
It's okay. I was just like, oh no, I can't hear her. I thought it was
I
my
hate
computer.
when that happens and then you're like, oh, just waiting for it. Like, so, well, thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being vulnerable, yet strong and courageous to share, you know, what limited beliefs, limited seeds. And I really want you to dig into that, and I want you to uproot that and get rid of it, because you are beautiful. You're enough. You're strong.
Yeah, it is interesting when you start kind of like trying to peel back the onion as you get older, and you're like, why does this bother me? Like, why do I think that? And you're like, kind of like going layer up by layer, and you're like, oh my gosh, like that's where that started. And so I've been doing a lot of that lately, actually. And it's just interesting how many things stick with you for so many years and just repeat as patterns within your life until you actually figure out what it is and where it's coming from.
I was listening. My cat was scratching at the door. She's like, let me out. I did not want her to go to the bathroom in my room. So,
yeah. No, I was just going to say, I totally resonate with that, because sometimes we catch ourselves worrying about something and not even knowing why it's there or where it's coming from. And it's been really helpful to me to investigate, because I didn't used to do that. It wasn't even on my radar. Why? Just keep on going with your lives. And I feel like part of maturity and really empowerment is really looking into these things and not just taking them, you know, for face value of, oh, it's just there. And because that's when you victimize yourself, right? Oh, it's an accident. I can't really do anything about it. I don't have control over my thoughts. And that's not true.
That is true. Yep. No, this is good. So thank you guys for having me. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. It's a nice moment to regroup, pep talk of, I got this, I'm a badass. So thanks for the reminder.
I
We
joined
all are
late.
badasses.
I'll try to get there on time.
Oh, Jamie said something.
Yeah, I started late.
It's all right. We're recording it, so we'll upload it to the school in a little bit.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have an awesome day.
Thank you, you too, Brandy.
Thank you, Jamie.
Bye.
And Jackie
And
joined
Brandy.
midway through too.
Yes,
so
Jackie
I don't know
did.
if
So
she wants to contribute and say anything.
yeah, do you have any
Otherwise-
questions, Jackie? My cat just fell.
Oh God. I don't know if she's hearing us or not.
I don't know. Let me unmute her.
Jackie.
I can't unmute her for some reason. So,
It's all right.
okay.
All right. So guess that's it.
That's it. I'll stop recording. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I forgot that we should have done it